All right, everybody, welcome into another Believe in Wizards. I'm Matt Modderno. I've got Jahadi White joining me here. We've got a lot to talk about today. Jahadi, I'm so excited. It's a new day with the Washington Wizards. How are you feeling about all the moves overall here?
Not bad, actually. Not bad. I mean, some of them were inevitable
Yeah.
anyway. So from so far, what we got out of them, I think we got some good youth.
Yeah, I think that seemed to be the thing they prioritized here is getting some younger guys they could try out and then getting off some salary, which was obviously pretty important to them. And then it
Yeah,
also seems like they prioritize second round picks here. We're going to get into that a little bit, but it seems like the Wizards own every second round pick for forever at this point. So we can talk through that a little bit here right now. I think probably anybody listening to this is familiar. Bradley Beal has been traded. He went to the Phoenix Suns along with Jordan Goodwin. That one bummed me out big time in the moment. I didn't really understand why we were giving them Brad and one of our kind of exciting younger guys, but not really sure what the thinking was behind that one.
yeah. I think that was tough to get up Jordan and Brad. That's a lot of fire.
Yep.
Not always firepower, but just vigor, fire, motivation.
Hmm.
A player like Jordan, he's just gonna grow, and it's hard to replace that specific type of energy and that type of mentality. Just a person who would go out and do anything for the team and going to give you his all and dive on the floor, everything 50-50. You can guarantee he's going to fight for it. He's going to be a very undersized rebounder. So to me, I don't know if that was more of a Brad thing.
Hmm.
It may have been a little part of his deal. You
Sure.
know, um,
I want my guy to come with me.
I got to have my guy to come with me,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is great
I
for
wonder about that.
Phoenix. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a
two hometown
steal.
guys. They're from the
Yeah.
same city.
Yep. No, it was a huge pickup for Phoenix because he'll probably have to play for them this year, like a good amount, I would think.
Definitely. And Phoenix needs that aggressiveness,
Hmm.
right? They need an aggressive edge in that type of player, especially losing who they lose last year. Well, they did the one who didn't play a lot for some. He was going through contract negotiation. Finally left.
Jay Crowder.
Crowder.
Yeah.
Crowder was kind of a physical type,
Yeah.
you know, that aggressive type, do a dirty work type. So to me, Goodwin really would kind of help replace that loss of Crowder.
Yeah, he can come in and be the guy to do all the dirty work from the guard position. And I think he's a perfect fit next to those three other wing scorers, push the ball, defend tougher guys in the perimeter, rebound, just get after people. And he doesn't have to worry about like his shooting percentages and stuff. He's going to be wide open. So it seems like a great fit.
Right. And then he doesn't, and they are not looking for him to score a lot. So he can pretty much make an impact
Mhm.
without having to light up the scoreboard.
I was bummed when that happened just because this is one of the few guys the Wizards have found. They know that it was somebody they identified that other teams didn't. And he performed. Honestly, I think he's on pace with some of their first round picks. So to get him undrafted and kind of grow him in the organization, it's a guy playing like a first round pick, essentially, or a late first round pick, or whatever you want to call it, but also was like hungry like an undrafted player. And the on court stuff is important, but this is the guy busting other people's asses in practice. This is the guy,
Yeah.
making sure other people put the time and work in. Like that's
He's going to make
invaluable,
your other players better.
right?
He will literally make your other players better. Not only that, I mean, he's going to just get better every day. That's why I say it couldn't. In the end of the day, the Wizards knew they had to get rid of Brad.
Sure.
They knew they wanted to get it done. They wanted to get it done fast. Brad wanted it done fast.
Hmm.
If this was one of Brad's requests in the process of trading him,
Right.
the Wizards pretty much had to grant that for a bigger picture,
Hmm.
right? Because I
Yep.
mean, it's not like a guy that it was not like a first rounder, not even a second round. Really, they found him in it's a G League type of situation.
Sure.
So if you look at it that way, okay, all right, Brad. But if you look at it as what this guy could bring us,
Mm-hmm.
it does make a little hit. It's a hit toward them. But in the end of the day, they knew that they were going to. The whole point was we're going to restructure anyway.
Right. Yeah, he doesn't break your back to trade.
Right.
You were probably
Right. Do
only
we
going to net
compromise this guy for the entire plan of restructure?
exactly. Like if we had to throw him in, we had to throw him in. I understand that from like a logical standpoint, but when I saw it, I was like, I was pretty bummed in real time. And they threw in Isaiah Todd, who I still think will turn into an NBA player at some point in his career here too. So that was a little bit of a bummer to see both those guys as late additions to the trade. The Wizards out of that got back Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, 2024 first round pick swap, a 2024 second round pick, a 2025 second round pick, a 2026 first round pick swap, a 2026 second round pick, a 2027 second round pick, a 2028 first round pick swap, a 2028 second round pick, a 2030 first round pick swap, and a 2030 second round pick. I know that sounded redundant. I read those all off only to show that there is stuff that came back here, and those later pick swaps in the 2030 timeframe, Brad is probably on the back end, 7 years from now. Kevin Durant is probably retired 7 years from now. Like, you've just got Booker and some other dudes. The Phoenix first round picks could be pretty valuable. So being able to, if we're good by 2030 and they're not, being able to switch with them, that could actually end up being really valuable for the Wizards down the road here. So I mentioned all that to say just that those first round pick swaps, especially the 2028, 2030 timeframe, could end up being really valuable for the Wizards. Essentially, you're saying that if you're good by then and Phoenix is bad because Brad and Durant have retired, you get to flip flop picks with them. So if we're a playoff team and they're a lottery team, we could be getting lottery picks back in those later drafts. And I think that's actually a more valuable commodity than somebody's 29th pick in 2025 or whatever. It might end up being a really big pickup for them.
Yeah, it will be if you have time on your side, right? So it seems like the Wizards' entire plan to say, hey, we put together a super team of GMs in the organization. Now, like, what's our window of time to be good?
Yeah, to
be a major competitor, be not only a playoff team, but a team that's in the finals, fighting for the finals every year or winning the finals.
Yep.
They're not. It seems like they're really under the understanding that this is not something that's going to happen overnight.
Yep.
So, in that case, it seems like their position or their angle is to work for time for the future. Let's get a lot of opportunities for the future the most opportunities for the future we can get, long as we're here. Yep. And as long as Ted is letting us take this angle and work this game plan, then we have time because we will be here, which is kind of unheard of now in today's NBA. Everything is pretty much, instant. We got to get it instant oatmeal. But yeah, it could work good for them, in the future, the way they're setting it up. I'm just not used to seeing it, and I don't know how long the fans would be patient with that process.
Agreed. I think that's why those pick swaps help you, though, because you could be good again in 3 years and still end up with lottery picks down the road because of those swaps. If Phoenix doesn't, immediately like turn it over and keep kind of, a competitive team going when those guys retire, which they could, you never know, but at least it gives you some potential chances to maybe still get talent influxes if you're the Wizards down the road. Looking at the OKC model, the last time they kind of flipped this thing, they tried to do it in like 3 years. When Travis Schlenk was with the Hawks, they rebuilt completely within 3 years. So I would imagine that's probably like their general window here is they want to try to be like a playoff team again within this sort of 3-year window. And then hopefully you've also given yourself some like longer term assets to keep building beyond that. That's what I would guess is sort of the game plan.
Yeah, 3 years in 3 years in the NBA is short.
Sure.
It is. It's very short.
Yep.
But for a fan,
No, I'm with you.
a season is long.
Yeah.
I mean, for a fan, they could love you and doing 25% of the season, that the rest of that 75% of the season
People forget quickly.
Would feel like it's a decade.
No, I know.
Right. So even now, the Wizards have to still, I get the process. The Wizards still have to show some growth.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So, so you look at it both ways. I think you do both.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're actually doing a good job of doing both.
Yeah. I'm totally with you.
Because I like, out of the picks we have, I really see two that can really lead us to the future.
Okay. Which two guys are you keying in on here?
I like Poole. So obviously Poole.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the biggest sleeper is Bilal.
Oh yeah. He's fun to watch, right? I mean,
man, I think he's the biggest sleeper in the draft.
Yeah. I think next year he would have been a top 5 pick for sure. So to get him at 8 or I guess 7 this year is big.
And he's a freak to me.
Yeah.
Right. In a sense, 6'8" point guard.
That's the hope.
6'8" point guard. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's now he can guard 1 through 5, and he will guard a 1 a lot. Yeah. And you have to play against a 6'8" guy as a point.
And he's as quick as you and as athletic.
Never get the shot off.
Right.
Athletic. I mean, now and he will make it tough and high IQ because he's played point, growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really, and can run the floor long. He's like a speed. He reminds me of a combination of OG Anunoby and a young Chris Paul.
Wow, that's pretty good praise, right? I mean, like,
yeah. So, and then you pair that with a Jordan Poole, right?
That's a dangerous backcourt.
To me, that's a dangerous backcourt already.
Yep.
You can build around that backcourt. So I don't think we lost, and they're young.
Right. That's huge.
We swapped, youth. We got some youth for, some vets. I don't think they did a bad job.
I saw some Wizards fans trying to say
now with Porzingis, I don't know with that.
Sure.
But as far as what we have right now with those two, I like it.
I think that's perfectly said there. And I didn't feel the same way at this they were happening. I was like, oh, we did better with Porzingis than Beal, and now it's like, no, actually, we definitely didn't. But the interesting thing, I've seen some fans trying to say that they felt like Poole is already, as good as Bradley Beal. And no, he isn't. Like, let's just not revisionist history here. Like, Beal is still the better player, but by the ends of their contracts, who's the better player? Poole is only going to get better, presumably, at his age. And Beal is at that point in his career where he's probably he's definitely not still trending up, I would say, at this point at 29 or 30. I forget which Brad actually is. So you probably don't lose a ton there over the next couple years, and Poole is cheaper. And if he doesn't work out super well, by the end of his contract, he's cheap enough you could flip for more assets for another team if he's not working out for you. So I think that's actually like a really sneaky, smart pickup for them for a lot of reasons.
Right. I think, to me, Brad is still much better than Poole.
Agreed. Yeah. Just 4 years from now, what does that look like, though?
Well, but the biggest factor is Poole had it. Poole is skilled. Poole is aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
Poole has to get the mentality that Brad has.
Yeah, just gonna.
Right. That's Poole's biggest downfall is his mentality right now. So that's a major factor that you really have to consider in all of this. So because now when things get tough,
right,
Poole disappears.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So he's still very young. He acts very young.
I think that's
So
the thing that worries me a little bit.
About okay. Yeah. And now you got a guy coming from France, who's young, which probably I think he may be more mature right now.
It honestly kind of seems like
because he's those guys that's coming from overseas been playing pro ball since 15, 16 years old.
Right.
So, this pro ball is not new to him. Being a professional isn't new to him. So he may be better for Poole.
Did you ever have any young international teammates come over, Jahadi, or guys that got drafted while you were here? I'm not to quiz you or put you on the spot in real time here, but I'm just curious, like how big of a learning curve that is for these guys. To me, if someone said, go to this new country, adapt to this way of life, and take on this new profession where you play 3 times as many games a year, I think that takes time. Like, I think that's something we kind of underestimate. It seems like a bigger deal than maybe we kind of give it credit for.
So yeah, with younger players, so the thing is with most younger players that I've dealt with that came over from overseas that played professional, they seem more mature, but they always had a interpreter.
Yeah, you're hearing a grown man translate some stuff for them.
Right. So it's once the interpreter comes into play, it almost brings them back to kind of not as a veteran, more, that you can see that they worked at it. You can see it in, the way they carry themselves. You can see the way they're in their discipline.
Sure.
But when you have an interpreter, everything seems like, from a perspective of not understanding what's being said, it looks like they're in class.
Yeah. And you get the college vibe a little bit
in
there,
the sense. So right, so it automatically you put it in your mindset. You put them in a younger space.
That's fair. I'm trying to think. I can't remember any like young Euro guys that were from overseas that came over while you were there. But you were there while Kwame was there. I mean, is there like what's that like when you come in and there's huge expectations? Like you've got Bill Simmons saying Coulibaly reminds him of the French Scottie Pippen already, and that's what he could see him being like. That's a huge thing to hear right away. You've got your own teammate Victor Wembanyama saying you should have easily been a top 5 pick. Like that's a lot to deal with right out of the gate.
Well, it depends. Is it a lot to deal with?
If you listen to it, I guess it's a lot to deal with, right?
If you already you're already professional. I'm sorry, my microphone is acting up. Yeah. So to me, if you're already professional, right? You play professional ball in France for a long time. Been playing against grown men for a long time, right? At a high level. That's already a pro mentality.
Sure.
Right? I don't think he's coming over here without the feeling like, oh, the NBA, I can't handle it. I can't play. I'm sure he's played against a lot of these players. Everybody, anyway, somewhere, somehow, trained. I see Bilal as a confident kid. See him a very confident kid. And most likely I see him as what Wembanyama said about him.
Mm-hmm.
Just feel like he said, yeah, he's speaking the truth.
Yeah.
You got something to prove. When you got something to prove, if you didn't go where you felt like you needed to go in that draft,
Prove something. Yeah.
you have something to prove. Believe you me. Like you want to kill everything on the court as far as just dominating. So he's going, and obviously, if you've seen him play, he's confident in his skills. I'm confident in his skills. I like the kid. I like what I see.
Yep.
I agree with Wembanyama.
I think this is the interesting thing here. And for anyone that's sort of more skeptical about the pick, I would say watch both levels he played at last year. If you just watched him on their Pro A team with Wembanyama, for the second half of the season, essentially, he did play more of like a 3-and-D type role. But if you go watch him play with his under 21 team, he's got the ball, he's showing a little wiggle, like he's trying to cross guys over and get to the rim, like he's hitting step backs. I mean, like there's enough there where you're like, oh, okay, like this guy's got a bag a little bit. Like that's the piece. And I heard some of this point guard talk originally, and I got a little PTSD because last year with the Johnny Davis pick, you had Johnny Davis, who was like a power forward on his high school team at 6'4". He goes to Wisconsin. He takes a year to develop, and he's like suddenly this like dominant scoring guard. And we draft him, and you hear Woj say that he got from Tommy Shepard, and you hear Tommy Shepard say it. Johnny Davis is our point guard of the future. And they ask Wes Unseld about it, and he's like, well, I don't think he's ever played point guard before, but maybe we'll see. And you ask Johnny Davis about it, and he's like, well, I'll try to do whatever they need me to do. It wasn't like they asked Coulibaly about it, and you've got Will Dawkins saying, I would say you'll see early on in Summer League, we're going to put the ball in his hands. We're going to give him an opportunity to play, make decisions, make reads, and his size. That's pretty exciting because, like to your point, he grew up playing point guard, and they want him to show that. And then Dawkins also said, it's the thing that pops right away when you see the 7'2" wingspan for a guard. He's 99 percentile for his position, for his height, percentile for his position for length. If you take all the measurements and then see him run and jump, he's probably 99 percentile in that too. But that comes with the effort. He's a guy that takes contact, dishes it out on offense, and defensively he can guard on the ball, guard off the ball. We see him as a guy that can switch and be versatile. He embraces that. To me, that's somebody that's like got a very clear picture of what they want this guy to be for them and why they took him. It's not, well, we hope he can play a position he's never played before. It's, you may not have seen him play point guard, but he can do it, and we know that about him. I love that.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, and not only that, he's not the average or the standard point guard.
Yep.
Right. So now you get just like Wembanyama, like he's not a 5, right? So now every team in the NBA is figuring out who do we put on him? How do we guard him? How do we stop him? Right? No way we can block a shot because the person who had to stop him, we don't want him to even play out where he's playing. So the entire dynamic of a position that you would normally figure out a person should be is completely turned around.
Yep.
Right? So to me, Bilal's an enigma. Right?
Yeah,
right.
No, it's a perfect word for it.
So that's the sweet part about it. Right? To me, that's why it's such a good pick. Now, only thing I haven't personally really, really seen is the point guard decision making of facilitating.
Yeah, agreed.
Right? I've seen everything else. So if he's, because I mean, in the end of the day, no matter how athletic you are, how great a defender you are, if you're not really you're not a great micro decision maker, right? Like you make micro decisions and quick as a point guard, then there's no way you can run an offense.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the only thing that I'm still, looking to see.
I watched some of their under 19 French team from last summer, and I mentioned this when we talked about him, weeks ago or whatever. But like, I think it was interesting to see he's like 20 pounds heavier than last summer. So he's already bulked up and they've got him in a weight training program and all those things, which is nice. But he was a little on the ball, more on the ball there. And I wouldn't say he was like a point guard for them, but they like let him do some stuff and push the ball in transition and see if he could make the right plays. And he did some of that stuff. So even if he's not a long-term, full-time point guard for you or whatever, at least that he can do it situationally and that Poole can do it some situationally. Now we've got two guys that can do a little bit of both. Like you just become a lot harder to guard when, like multiple guys can do multiple things, I guess.
Right. Yeah. And each of those two players, Poole and Bilal that you mentioned, they both have a little bit of each in them, right? So I haven't seen Poole be a great facilitator either. But you know what? But then again, Tatum and Brown, they're both two big time just ISO players one-on-one.
Sure.
And it's been working for them up to a point.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
It'll be interesting to see with Poole.
Plus you got Tyus Jones, right?
Yeah, I like that too.
Right, you got Tyus Jones, who, I feel like he's a really good point guard. I think he's just been overshadowed by Ja Morant.
Yep.
So
when Ja's out, they're good still with him. Like he's an NBA player. I mean, like he's good.
That's a good pickup.
Yeah.
Right. So to me, I'm looking at Tyus. I'm looking at Bilal and Jordan Poole.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can put, one can be, 1, 2, 3.
Yep. I've seen a couple people say they don't want Tyus Jones to start because him and Poole together is a really small backcourt, and we've had a bunch of small. But I wouldn't want that long term, but I don't care that much in the short term, right? Like, let them play with Tyus. Let him set them up to be in positions where they can be successful. And there's, he's scrappy enough that he'll figure it out on his end. And, I'm sure that's
Stephen Poole was on the court at the same time.
Exactly. That seemed to work out just fine, right? I mean,
You're right. Yeah.
And I think Poole's got more he can show there that now that he doesn't have to play next to Steph and Draymond and all this other stuff, like he could probably do some other things. So
that interests me and it worries me.
Right. He's going to try to do too much.
We know it's yeah. Because you got it. This is what I always say about a player.
Yeah.
You'd rather have a player that you would have to scale back to try to push him forward.
Yeah.
I do know that it's going to be a lot of instances that we're going to have to scale Poole back. Right? Just for the sake of organized, like, just for the sake of the team.
Yeah. Sometimes less is more, right? Like it's
sometimes, right? So, and as long as we can do that, we can get him in the right space, because in the end of the day, I think he's going to have to be our predominant scorer.
Yeah.
I'm not crazy. I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But with this now that we're much younger, people got to get involved.
Mm-hmm.
The ball has to move. It's almost like Fox on Sacramento.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, he gets his, but he's also moving that ball. Like that ball is nonstop moving. Right. So it's like it's a combination of a Spurs offense with the speed of a Golden State.
Yep.
Right. Where the ball just constantly. And if we can really incorporate something that way with those young guys, I think we have something.
And that's the thing Fox had to learn too. I think sometimes these guys, they have to figure that out a little bit, right? Like, okay, I can do more things here. I can play super fast all the time, but maybe there are times when I should slow the pace down. And like, pick your spots to attack a little bit more for yourself. So maybe that's just going to be part of the growing pains with Jordan Poole. So I think for fans, like, if the first 20 games are kind of a hot mess, I wouldn't give up on him or that experiment. It's just give them time to kind of, figure it all out. And
No, you don't do it. That's experiment. You work.
right.
You work the experiment till you get it right, because it's the right pieces.
Yeah. Yeah, these are the guys you want to try to build around.
You have to mold them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the right pieces.
You said it right there. I always love this from him, though. Your old college coach, John Thompson, the second, you'd rather calm down a fool than raise a corpse. I think that's the Jordan Poole line in a T. So
right.
We live with that. And this is going to be an interesting coaching job for Wes Unseld, though. I think that's sort of the other open piece of this is I don't think anybody felt particularly confident in the way the last couple years have gone from a coaching perspective. Like, Wizards fans as a whole are not screaming like we've got a top 5 coach. And now we'll see. He's also new to the job. And I don't know, is it easier as a younger coach or a newer head coach to learn with a newer group than a veteran group? Like, what's that kind of like, Jahadi, from like, will this be tougher on Wes or will it be better suited for him maybe?
I think it'd be easier in one sense.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do more, right? Because you're not going to really get a lot of pushback. What you have to do is a lot of convincing and a lot of molding.
Sure.
With a veteran, you more have to do a lot of like compromising.
Yeah.
Right. Like, let me see my vision. Let me see yours. Or let's compromise. And then you try to slowly push more. Right. Because a veteran says, okay, if what you're doing or what you're trying to run hurts my value, then we have a problem.
Yeah, right.
As long as what we're doing increases my value and don't hurt my value, we good.
Sure.
But I'm not getting ready to hurt my value to run your system.
Yeah.
Because this is my job too. Right?
Yeah.
Or with a young person, I'm like, all right, well, let me do what I do to fit the system. Right? They're not even concerned about their value yet. They're concerned about playing.
Yeah.
Right? Because their value hasn't even kicked in yet.
And they want to earn those minutes from you. Yeah.
Yeah. So as a coach, I'm doing more molding you for my system without trying to handcuff you, which is pretty much completely not that's much differently, but it's not more as much push and pull.
Sure. That makes sense. It is a little concerning that they're probably, by all accounts, their 2 best player development coaches left this offseason. It's like now you have these young guys where you could most benefit from that. That is a little bit of a bummer, but hopefully that's what they're looking to supplement. I feel like you probably build your staff out differently with a team like this than you would a team that you were hoping, was better in run and could make the playoffs and stuff like that. So hopefully the player development guys are being brought in here pretty soon.
But that's the thing. You have a lot of youth and we're trying to go young. You need top player development.
Yeah.
But then you also need top player development that's buying into the system.
Sure. Yeah, they got to get it right.
Right. Well, they got to get right. What Wes wants to run, I have to make you a better player
to
individually.
Fit that system. Yeah.
No, individually.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I had to feel like I'm making you a better player individually. So no matter where you go in the NBA, you be better than you were when you left here. Yep. But I also have to make you a better player and develop you for the system we're running as well.
That makes
right.
Sense.
So if I'm Wes and my player development coach is only making the player better individually,
Doesn't help me
That's
much.
not helping me as a coach any.
Right.
Maybe helping the player
Yeah.
a lot. Because now his skill, his reads, his everything is better.
Mm-hmm.
But if I have to also train you within the confines of the offense, if that make any sense, right?
Yep.
So if I'm just going and doing, skills and drills and routines and that's not where you're going to have the ball in the offense, it doesn't help me as a coach.
Yeah, you got to be able to apply it in a way that you're actually going to ask to be applying it
within the system. Yeah, right. You got to train a kid within the system he plays in.
That's a great point. We talked a little bit about this a couple episodes too, of just sort of like the need for veteran leadership on this team. And so this is the other thing fans are asking about is like, who should go out that's left from this roster, essentially. And Monte Morris is getting some discussion. DeLon Wright is getting some discussion. They've talked about buying out Danilo Gallinari. Is Mike Muscala here long term? People like that. For me, I'd be keeping at least a couple of those guys. Like a DeLon Wright, I think is really interesting. Like he was by all accounts your best perimeter defender next year. I think that what like Bilal can learn from DeLon Wright is super important. Here's how you defend other guys. Here's when you gamble for stuff. Here's, like to me that even if it's, I don't know, you see you keep them to the trade deadline or whatever, even those first 50 games together, I still think is valuable to have as a young guy. So I just wouldn't be in a hurry to ship out all the veterans on the roster immediately. And if I had a choice between the two, I'd be keeping the ones that are maybe more defensive minded because that's what I think you want to try to build with this group when you've got length and athleticism and things like that is those guys that are going to be locked in defensively the whole time.
I think it comes down to keeping the guys who understand what their job is.
Yeah, that's
right?
a point too.
So you understand your job is now more than your job is still to produce when you're on the court, but your main job is to take these young guys under your wing, teach them everything that you can, right? Because in the end of the day, now when as a veteran, it comes to a point to where you only have so many years left. I'm watching you to see if I can one day you can, be a GM or be a player development guy or be a coach, right? Right. So now you're getting paid not only to just, we know what you can do, we know what you can't do, we know what you can give, we know as much as what you're not giving. But how much information can you pass on to our younger guys?
Yep. And Tyus Jones is like a good,
and that's really going to determine. That's really going to determine if you're here or not.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it, and I think someone
that's why they always keep veterans on the bench.
Yeah,
remember how they used to. It was for that specific reason, right? So now that's going away, but certain teams just have to have it, and if they don't, you better have a certain type of coach. You better have a Mike Brown.
Yep. Yeah, no, I agree. I think
to instill a lot of just culture. Because when you don't have that veteran leadership, you got to have a lot of culture.
Yeah, I mean that the guys they've picked up in this trade are by all accounts like good, solid veterans. Like nobody says anything bad about Tyus Jones. Mike Muscala has been the ultimate professional, and he's a guy that came from a smaller school and has had to work hard. Like those kinds of guys are people I would be focused on, keeping here to fill out that roster with. And if you want to buy Gallinari out because he's only got a couple years left and he wants to try to win, like, okay, fine. You don't want a veteran here that's not happy to be here, but I can't imagine like Mike Muscala is rocking the boat about being on this rebuilding team, would be my guess. And just looking at the Porzingis trade, we mentioned Muscala and Jones and Gallinari. Those are the guys they essentially got back for Porzingis. The other big piece here is they got the number 35 pick in this year's draft. They traded it for 2 future seconds. Johnny, we were talking about this before we recorded. I didn't really understand the move because I liked a lot of the guys still on the board at 35. But I guess the thinking here is like in this draft alone, the Wizards had to trade 2 second-round picks to get up to number 7 to make sure they still got Bilal. So maybe they're thinking all these second-round picks help them do little moves like that over time and they've talked about wanting to be aggressive to get the guys they want. So I guess if they figured they have lots of these things as like throw-ins for other deals, maybe that helps them. But I don't know. I still would have tried to keep the 35th pick in this draft personally.
Yeah, I don't get the thought process behind it. The the angle behind it at all. Maybe I don't know, but I just feel that would really help us out.
Yeah.
Plus, that pick in the draft was a good pick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the kid they took, Julian Phillips, was a former 5-star recruit that had a rough year. Like that's who went 35th. Like that's the kind of guy I think you want to try to get in the second round and rehab somebody's value and see if they can, be the player everybody thought they were going to be a year ago.
Yeah, I don't look. Sometimes people, feel like they know what they're doing and been in the job a long time and are professionals, but some things are just right in your face, just pretty much obvious, especially with 2 second-round picks later. They're not major picks. So, yeah, I don't understand the thought process behind that one particularly.
It's also easy enough to like buy a second-round pick later in another draft if you needed to. So, $1 million in cash would get you another second-round pick from a team if you needed it.
Wasn't that valuable, right?
Yeah.
Like what? Why do you get rid of that? How do you come together as a 3-headed monster and say, this is what we're doing? What do you really gain?
Yeah. They must have just said, look, we're out of guys we like in this draft or something. I that's the only thing I can think of is they're just like, you know what? We've maxed out on the dudes we really want. And they also took European player Tristan Vukcevic 7 picks later. So maybe they thought this is our guy and we can definitely still get him at 42. So we don't need 35. Yeah. That's kind of the only thing I came back to is like, all right, we can get our dude. We don't like anyone else in this range enough. Let's get something for it. But I don't know. I still wouldn't have done it either. But I'm gonna trust our super friends front office here enough that maybe they got something smart behind the scenes we don't know about. I don't know.
Yeah, because I have no information for that one. I'm pretty much speechless on that decision.
I got 1 or 2 more sort of random ones for you before we close out here. Anything else you want to add on the Beal trade, the Poole edition, the Bilal draft pick, the Porzingis trade? Anything else as we wrap that piece of the show up?
No, I think the Wizards actually did a good job.
Same.
Yeah, and which were that's what we were trying to wait on. Like, what are they going to do? Who are we going to get for Brad? Like, there's a lot of who's out of the big 3, who's going, so I think they did a really good job with the Beal trade. Porzingis trade so much, I just think they would just want to free up some money there.
Yep.
So, but we have a good backcourt to start with.
Yeah, you said it. The pieces are the right pieces. I mean, that's exciting.
Yeah.
All right. So 2 other things worth noting, not super big moves here, but they've got a lot of young dudes on this roster. I think a lot of them will play Summer League, so we haven't seen a ton of Summer League announcements, but they have said that Iowa State big man Asuni, I think I'm probably butchering that, but will play Summer League for the Wizards this year. He worked out for the Wizards in early June. He's about 6'9", 6'10", has a 7'8" wingspan. good mobile guy, runs the floor hard, blocks shots. He'll be a good pickup for summer league, maybe for the go-go next year. He is 24 years old, which I think is why he wasn't really on draft radar, but he started his career at St. Bonaventure and blocked almost 3 shots a game while he was there in the A10. He's played for 2 really good, smart, defensive-minded college coaches, so I think that's a good pickup. And then another name I'm sure I'm going to butcher here, Dejan Vasiljevic. He's played 4 years at the University of Miami, played the last 3 years in the Australian NBL League. He's a 6'3" combo guard. Just won the NBL championship back-to-back years with the Sydney Kings. He's a career 39% three-point shooter on 6 attempts per game. So anytime you watch him, it's literally just him hoisting up threes pretty much from wherever he is on the court. So I don't know if either of those guys are like long-term NBA players or whatever, but interesting enough guys to fill out the summer league roster with and just see if they mesh and maybe you can put them on the go-go team next year. So worth looking at, I think.
Yeah, it's always good to kind of really tap in those overseas players and see what diamond in the rough or needle in a haystack you can find. You'll never know. So I'm glad we're kind of looking over there to see, hey, let's see the possibility of these certain guys. That we could mess around and really find a gem. So when you get those guys that's athletic or can really put up shots, you're looking for a specific type of guys, right? And saying, okay, how do they fit within our system? And can we make them pros? And I think the summer league is a perfect place to do it. Then you bring them into, training camp and see if they can survive that.
Yep.
And you may have a Jordan Goodwin.
Yeah, it's the only way to find out if you got some. Yeah.
Right. And then if you get 1 or 2 of those, you look like a genius.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. Vasiljevic played on the Sydney Kings with Xavier Cooks that the Wizards picked up at the tail end of last year, their other Australian player. So there's some familiarity there. Maybe while looking at Cooks, they saw something in him that was worth picking up. And they said Cooks will also probably play summer league. So he's a 27-year-old, but he'll get his chance to show some stuff with these other young guys, which I think is cool. And I am bummed. This is like the first year, the last couple of years, I have not been able to go to summer league, and this is the team I would most like to see at summer league. Yeah. So
I may be there, so I give you.
There you go.
I give you some feedback.
Okay, I love that. Please do. I think it should be probably the most exciting group we've put together there in some time. So that'll be awesome. All right, this was brought to my attention by Conlin of the District of Collectors, DC Top Shot group. He said that celebrity chef David Chang, who owns the Momofuku restaurant chain, said on his podcast they were looking at NBA players they'd want for dinner guests, and he listed you as one of them. And then he also told an anecdote that he'd heard from some friends that went to Georgetown that Allen Iverson used to sit behind you in some classes because he wanted to sleep and have nobody notice him. Is that a true story, Jahadi? That's hysterical.
Oh, man. Where did he hear that from? How did he get that information?
He's from the DC area, and he said he had a lot of friends that went to Georgetown at the time. So it seemed like he had some insider info there, maybe.
Oh, man, that's funny. That's funny. I kind of remember times we like, man, just sit in front of me. I'm sitting back here, right? So yeah, he would do that. Allen Iverson would do that.
That's pretty awesome.
Not saying that, if we all know how smart Allen Iverson is.
Sure.
He could have breezed through those classes.
Yep.
He's just Allen Iverson.
I love it, man. One of one.
Yeah, but that's funny.
I'm glad
that's funny that he because I didn't. How did he get that information? Because that's more with me and Allen type of thing.
Yeah, right. I don't know. He maybe his friends knew AI a little bit or something.
Yeah.
I do. I mean, I went to
I'm very familiar with his restaurants.
the delicious food. You can't go wrong with that. So pretty cool. pretty cool that he'd want you as
I'm
a dinner guest. You might have to work something out here.
Tell him that send an invite. I'm there.
Yeah, I will happily tag along for that one too. So very cool. All right, I think that's all I got for you, partner. Any parting shots here?
Oh no, not at all, man. Not at all. I'm good.
All right, folks. This is another Believe in Wizards podcast. I think it's a new era of Wizards basketball now, so we'll have some exciting things to talk about. And free agency is coming up, actually starting tomorrow. So we'll see if we have any big free agency news for you. The Kuzma one is probably the biggest one. Seems like he's probably gone, and whether or not they need to sign and trade him to do it is probably.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna keep him.
Yeah, I don't think so.
The way things are going, that's Kuzma pretty much. I would be understanding as a player. This is not the team for me.
Right. Yeah.
You know, they're trying to. Seems like they're. Which now that things are panning out how they are, would be a bad fit.
I kind of like it to some extent, to be honest with you. They need another forward, so it's not the worst thing.
Yeah. So we'll see.
I guess it remains to be seen if he leaves straight up or the team he wants to go to needs us to sign and trade him, and can they get anything else back for it? That'd be another huge move for this front office. If he does leave, can they get some kind of, I don't know, asset back in place? That'd be a big pickup. But either way, We'll keep you all posted. We'll have something to talk about next week. This has been Believe in Wizards. Rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we will catch y'all next time. And we're presented by betonline.ag. Can't forget that part.